Poltergeist, a novel by James Kahn based on a story by Steven Spielberg. O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is KTCV, Custa Verde Television, ending scheduled broadcast of our program day. Please join us again at 6:35 for Traffic Watch. And until then, have a pleasant good morning. The American flag suddenly disappeared from the screen and was instantly replaced by a hiss of static snow, shedding an eerie, bluish light across the living room. Steve Freely slept soundly in his recliner, 15 feet from the set, lot and parcel maps strewn on the floor around him, lease contracts covering his lap. Except for the white noise of the television, the house was dark and quiet. Upstairs in the large front bedroom, Steve's wife Diane curled peacefully around her pillow, undisturbed by dream or doubt. The lace curtains blew gently at the open window, on the quiet night's respiration. Outside, it was autumn, a shadow of change in the air. Down the hall from Diane was Dana's room. Dana was 15, cute, dark-haired, snoring, her head loosely slumped over her own personal telephone. Jeans in a pile by the bed, homework in a pile on the chair, diary stuffed under the mattress, lip gloss poised and waiting on the vanity. She slept like an unconscious heiress. Next to the master bedroom was the children's room. Robbie, 7, slept a fitful sleep, wrapped arm and paw with his terry cloth bare. The floor was covered with a profusion of toys, games, clothes, crowns, and the like, the joyous clutter of the very young. A stuffed clown doll sat lopsided in a rocking chair. Across the room, in a matching imitation frontier bed, slept Robbie's 5-year-old sister, Carol Ann. At a few minutes past 2:30 in the morning, Carol Ann opened her eyes. Without a sound, she sat up in bed, swung her legs to the floor, padded out of the room and down the hall to the top of the stairs. Her eyes were open, but without expression. They could as easily have been looking inward as out. Her small legs took her carefully down the steps in the darkness, past the front door, into the living room where her father slumped in his chair. The television filled the room with its characteristic glow, almost blue, almost white, its long continuous sigh awaiting the morning's transmissions. Carol Ann acted as if she didn't see her slumbering father. She walked past him without changing the direction of her gaze, walked up to the eyes of the television, stared into its depths, touched its face with her tiny hand. "Hello," she whispered. "Who are you?" Upstairs, Diane sat bolt upright. She was suddenly cold and wide awake. Steve wasn't beside her. She got up quickly, threw on a robe, closed the window, and ran downstairs. As soon as she entered, Steve woke up, spilling his papers to the floor. They looked at each other, then at Carol Ann. The little girl's nose was pressed to the static-filled tube. Her gaze tracked the dancing lights as if they were ruins flashing a secret message, for her eyes only. "Where are you?" she sang. "Come closer, I want to see you." Diane stared bleakly at her daughter and shivered. Cuesta Verde Estates was located 67 miles northeast of San Clemente and spanned over 300 acres of real estate. Of course, it wasn't all developed yet. It was still a young community, but it was a sound community. It would grow. Steve Freeling was a major force in that growth. His family had been the first to move into Cuesta Verde when Robbie was just an infant. The first to move in, the first to plant grass. The land had been barren at the beginning, miles of rolling hills, mostly scrubland. They piped water in, through planted bushes and saplings, set down roots, envisioned shopping centers, real suburban pioneers. Steve was also the #1 salesman of the entire development. It was easy for him. He believed in this place, believed in this life. He had a home, on a piece of land. He had a family, a job, a future, a vision. He was content with all the world. Emerson, the neighbor, was mowing his lawn. Emerson's wife, Elaine, lay glistening on their sun deck, rubbing the cellulite from her thighs with coconut oil. Delaney, the neighbor on the other side, was positioning his chair in preparation for watching the Rams wipe the Raiders all over the tube on the front porch. Three teens played frisbee in the middle of the street as Steve's golden retriever, E-Buzz, chased the flying saucer from hand to hand. Barbecue smoke filtered across the sun and the bright air smelled crisp. Steve took this all in at a glance, unconsciously, as he cut back his roses. Sunday was the day he tended the garden, and he felt a tremendous sense of well-being. He knew who he was, what life was about. He had it all down. At 37, he was a large, handsome man, strapping, even though he'd begun to develop a well-fed American paunch, and his hairline was higher than he might have liked. He had a bad knee from playing college ball. Only the week before, his doctor had told him his diet was simply terrible. Steve had replied, that was no surprise, so was Diane's cooking, whereupon Diane had kicked him under the table, advertently in the bad knee. He'd been limping for a week now, with sometimes theatric exaggeration in Diane's presence. But that was only a tease, and she knew it, for Steve was the gentlest of men. He loved his family dearly. Diane glimpsed him now from the bedroom window as she straightened up in there. She called out to him not to trim the roses back too much, but he didn't hear her because of the noise from the Emerson's lawnmower. She decided it wasn't worth yelling louder, so she paused, just to watch him a moment, then returned to the business at hand. Where Steve was big, Diane was slight. Wispy auburn hair, delicate fingers, even her arms seemed fragile, yet she was by far the feistier of the two. In an instant her pixie face could flush with blood, her eyes focused with will and fire, and then nothing could dissuade her from her purpose. Steve never tried to stand up to this force. She finished up in the bedroom and moved into the kids' room, humming softly to herself. Robbie's 8th birthday party was this afternoon. She had to get the whole house ready for the onslaught. She made the bed, shuffled most of the toys off the middle of the floor, sat Robbie's big stuffed clown doll up in his rocking chair, put away the clothes, went to feed the parakeet, and found the bird dead on the bottom of its cage. "Oh, Tweety, poor little twit," she addressed the small creature, half scolding, half sad. She reached into the cage, pulled the bird out, carried it into the bathroom, and held it ceremoniously over the open toilet, just like the Vikings Tweety carried out to the sea. "What are you doing to Tweety?" Carol Ann asked curiously. She stood in the doorway, watching her mother. "Oh, honey, I didn't see you there. Come here." Carol Ann joined her mother at the toilet. Diane had a special love for her youngest. The child was wise beyond her years, and had a naive fearlessness about her life that was inviolable. "Honey, Tweety's dead. He died this morning." "What does that mean, Mommy?" "It means he's sort of sleeping, like this, only he'll never wake up." "Like Grandpa?" "Uh-huh, just like Grandpa." "Then shouldn't we bury him? I don't think he likes the water." Diane smiled. "Let's bury him in the backyard. Then you can go visit him when you miss him." Carol Ann thought that seemed like a pretty good plan. Her mother helped her find a cigar box full of buttons, which they emptied, then put Tweety inside and marched single file out to the backyard in almost formal procession. They decided near the night blooming jasmine would be best, so it would smell nice for Tweety. Carol Ann also put half a Twinkie in the box in case he got hungry, and covered him with one of her socks in case it got cold, and included a Polaroid of the whole family in case Tweety woke up and got lonely. "I know you said they don't wake up," Carol Ann said, with considered seriousness, almost with secrecy, "but maybe he will." "Well, maybe so," Diane agreed. She looked at her child with unmodified love and kissed her on the forehead. They took turns digging the soft black earth with Carol Ann's beach shovel. When they reached a depth of 1 foot, they lowered the cigar box, then covered it over. Robbie watched this ritual from the top of the old oak tree that gnarled outside his bedroom window. It was one of the few old trees in the whole area, but wouldn't be getting much older. It was almost dead, twisted, black, and massive, with only a few green branches still growing near the top. Steve kept meaning to cut it down, but never found the time. Meanwhile, Robbie had appropriated it for his own use, and, as with any self-respecting 7-year-old, that use involved a lot of climbing. He'd in fact developed a rather complex relationship with the giant oak. It told him secrets about the earth. He told it about his adventures with the pirates. It contained a hidden door to an underground city at times. At other times, it was a great monster god from Jupiter, with wild, flame-blackened arms, waiting to be released from its spell, and only Robbie knew the words to free it. It almost always heard Robbie's thoughts. Sometimes the thoughts made the tree angry, sometimes they laughed together. Occasionally, as now, the tree was the living mass of an alien ship that sailed slowly beneath the ground. Robbie sat balanced in the crow's nest of the highest branches, viewing the journey ahead, the dramas below. In the front yard he could see his father puttering in a father way. That was good. Out back, Mom and Carol Ann were burying a box near the far corner. He would ask Carol Ann about it later. They were probably making an offering to the plant people, or maybe hiding something they didn't want Dad to see, or maybe the box was a treasure. He'd ask Carol Ann later. Down on the porch, he watched his big sister Dana sitting on the floor with two of her girlfriends, looking at the pictures in a fan magazine and giggling and whispering and making hand gestures of the sort he knew they shouldn't be making. He couldn't understand what they found so interesting in those magazines. It just made Dana mad when he asked. Over on the next block, he saw Bill Moon set off a cherry bomb in the Murphy's garbage can and run behind the fence. Everything stopped for a moment at the explosion, then resumed its measured pace. Murphy came running out, but only shook his head and went back inside. Bill Moon would be coming to Robbie's party later that afternoon. They could laugh secretly about this one together. The baffled expression on old Murphy's face, the great way a cherry bomb in a trash can sounded just like an M80. And only Bill and Robbie would know that Bill had done it. Robbie smiled like an astronaut with all systems go. 3 blocks away, at the top of the nearest hill, two kids started a skateboard race. In slow motion, at that distance. Robbie lifted his eye a fraction and peered beyond them, to the horizon. Dark clouds obscured the sky. They looked cold. Storm coming in. Dana had things pretty much ready for the party by a couple hours later. Crepe paper hung, tailless donkey on the wall, favors on the dining room table, virgin cake as a centerpiece. Dana and her friends were recruited to do some of the decorating. The request was met initially with grand protestations from Dana. Her girlfriends acquiesced easily, however. It wasn't their brother's party after all, so Dana could do little but look martyred and hang crepe. Robbie got ready early, showered, hair combed, clothes neat, so he could devote the extra time to getting things just right. The right toys available, the rest cached away. He had an urgent whispered conference with his mother explaining that Carol Ann would be allowed to join the party only if it could be assured she wouldn't follow Bill Moon around all the time, bothering him. Diane gave her assurance. Before too long, the party guests started arriving, some alone, some dropped off by a parent, all cleaned and brushed and bearing brightly wrapped gifts. Several parents stayed, a couple moms to help Diane orchestrate the chaos, a few dads to watch the football game in the den. The game was well into the first quarter by the time the party was underway, though so some disgruntled fathers were forced to miss one or two key plays during the shuttling of the revelers. Jim Shaw's father was the last to arrive, carrying 2 cartons of Michelob Light and a giant bag of Nacho Doritos. "What did I miss?" Shaw demanded, pulling a beer from the brown paper bag. "Shh! Hadn't fumbled. Sacked. Oakland's bringing out Barr. 3 more. Jesus! I was head on points when I left home. Now I'm pushing. Shh!" In the next room, the volume of the birthday celebration was rising exponentially. Pin the tail on the donkey and clothespin in the bottle established the proper tone of the frenzied giddiness, but it wasn't until musical chairs that the first tears came. Carol Ann's, when she lost her seat to Roby in the third go-round. Diane decided that meant a critical mass of excitement was being reached, and activity needed to be somewhat diffused, so she started everyone off on the treasure hunt. Each person received his own special secret clue and was turned loose, anywhere on the ground floor, inside or out. Dad's den excluded. Lots of little treasures, one big prize. They all oohed and ah as the clues were passed out, and the hunt was on. Carol Ann couldn't read the clues, so she was made Mom's special helper in the kitchen, for which she got her own special prize, a lady doctor's kit, complete with a stethoscope, tongue depressor, thermometer, hat, and a notepad. She spent the next 15 minutes listening to the hearts of Diane and the other moms, while the furtive skittering of pint-sized treasure seekers could be heard all over the nether regions of the house, punctuated by an occasional squeal of discovery. Carol Ann soon became bored, though, so she meandered unobtrusively in the den, where the other party was going on, and sat in Steve's lap. "Daddy, want to hear my dream?" "Not now, sweetheart. Daddy's busy watching the game." "What's Hayden think he's doing?" raged Shaw. "Getting creamed is what." It sounded pretty boring to Carol Ann, so she left, wearing her stethoscope, and headed upstairs to see if Donna wanted to play. In the den, the game started getting really exciting. Look at that den run! Steve marveled. Lester Hayes! Fucking Lester Hayes is there! He's there! He's... Out of nowhere, the channel changed all by itself to Mr. Rogers. The fans jumped up in shock and dismay. Steve ran over to the back window and screamed out, Tuthill, you asshole! Turn it back, quick! Begged Shaw in a baffled outrage. Sorry guys, Steve muttered, returning to the set. When my neighbor uses his remote, he's on my same frequency. He manually turned the channel changer back to football. Diane stepped in sternly. Okay, which asshole's talking like that in front of 20 kids? They gave her deferential attention with one eye, keeping the other on the game. But Tuthill, Steve began to protest. Diane stalked out, her point made. A second later, Mr. Rogers was singing again. Everyone groaned. Shaw actually wrung his hands. Steve walked resolutely over to the window, pointed his remote control box, and fired. From across the yard, a distant voice roared angrily. Don't start, Freeling! Steve stormed out the sliding glass door to the patio at the side of the house and yelled over his fence to the man standing in the back doorway of the house behind them. We got a game going on over here, Tuthill. My kids want to watch Mr. Rogers, Tuthill yelled back. I don't care what you're watching as long as you're showing a little mercy with that thing. Move your set, neighbor Tuthill's voice rang out before he slammed the back door. Move yours! Mr. Rogers went on again just as Steve re-entered the den. The assembled moaned. Shaw tossed a handful of Doritos in the air. Furiously, Steve aimed and fired his remote once more. A muffled "God damn it" could be heard from the Tuthills. Carol Ann, meanwhile, made it upstairs and slipped into Dana's room. Dana lay prone on the floor, having a serious conversation with Heather and Sienna. Hi, Dana. Want to hear my dream? Carol asked. Hi, Squirt. Not right now. We're talking. Can I listen to your heart? I haven't got a heart, punk. What are you talking about? How gross this place is. I don't think it's gross. That's because everything about it has the mentality of a 5-year-old, which is fine if you're going to be 5, Squirt, but it's a drag for the big kids. She sat up, unbuttoned her shirt. Okay, here. You can listen to my heart. Robbie suddenly burst into the room with a clue in his hand. Dana closed her shirt and shouted, Robbie! Mom! Geez, take it easy. I thought the treasure was here. It's only you trolls, though. He ran out as she threw a shoe. Come on, let's go to the drugstore. The 3 girls got up and left. Carol Ann wandered down the hall toward her parents' room. Robbie sat on the stairs studying his clue. Between the frill and the grill. He thought at first, and it meant between the frilly apron on the living room couch and the grill of the heating vent against the wall. But there had been nothing around there. He looked all around the kitchen and grill, even though there were no frills there at all. Then he'd gone up to Dana's room, which was full of frills, but of course no grills. And anyway, creepy Dana was there, so now what? Bill Moan already had his prize, a great ray gun that sprayed red light with D batteries. So where was the frill and the grill stuff? The barbecue grill outside. That was it. It was right next to the really frilly tablecloth Mom dumped over the pile of bricks out back. He jumped up and ran downstairs, tore out the side door, and ran across the grassy yard. Some kids had found their prizes were gloating smugly in the living room. Others were still hunting all over the house, upending pillows, looking under rugs. Others had given up, and now either played or moped. Robbie made it out to the grill, looking inside, behind it, under it, nothing. He went to the cloth under the bricks, peeled it back, poked around between the gritty cinder blocks until... Wait! Yes, over there, wedged in among 3 with the excitement of impending triumph, he reached into the little cove, put his hand around the object, and jumped back with a yelp. Something had bitten him. He looked at his hand, more startled than anything else. His index finger was a bit red and still stung. He peered back into the dark collection of upright bricks of the obscure thing. Whatever it was, there. Did it move? Robbie picked up the barbecue poker in his right hand, raised the poker over his head, kicked away one low wall of bricks, and jumped back. It was the clown doll, his old stuffed clown doll, grinning devilishly a little too broadly. It gave Robbie the creeps, too, looking at it now. He backed off. That didn't make sense. Was this his prize? Couldn't be. Besides, the clown had been up in the bedroom just before the party. Robbie had seen it there, he was certain, sitting right up in the rocking chair. Now it grinned at him from a funny angle, caught between the 2 bricks. For a brief moment, Robbie's teeth chattered. Then he heard his mother call from the house, so he turned and ran back in. The party continued, prizes were passed out, even to those who hadn't discovered their own. The opening of presents took place on the living room floor, with only one serious squabble developing over the first use of the Malibu Speed Race set. E-Buzz came in from his Frisbee marathon and barked a lot. Finally, the main event, the cake, the candles, the singing, the blowing, the paper plates, the plastic forks. The traditional food fight. It was during the earliest tactical maneuvers of the saturation cake bombing that they all heard the screams coming from upstairs. Diane was up the steps first, Steve out the den and right behind her. Others followed, electric with vicarious fear. These were all screams of a child, coming from the master bedroom. When they entered, they found the television on, turned to static snow. Carol Ann stood in front of it, inches from it, staring into it. Her eyes were wide with alarm, the little red plastic stethoscope around her neck. She was screaming uncontrollably. The party quickly ended. They put Carol into bed. She slept soundly for an hour, then woke up refreshed and unconcerned in time for dinner. She had no memory of the event. Pass the peas! Rod shouted across the table. He was feeling imperious on this significant occasion. This was his day. Pass the peas, please, grumbled his father, Steve. He was still pissed about Tuthill, still upset about Carol Ann, and still fed up with the Rams. Peas, please, peas, please, peas, please. Robert, would you please pass the peas, please? Rob intoned sweetly. One could afford to be magnanimous on one's birthday as well. Dad, can I sleep over at Heather's tonight? Asked Dana. Not unless you show me you finished your geometry. Come on, that's not fair. Life's not fair. Life's a good lesson to learn. In fact, you can't go to Heather's even if you do finish your homework. How's that? Mom! Diane whined. Do your math and we'll see, Diane mediated. Now, can we please have a little peace around here for a change? There was a thin edge to her voice. Pass the peace, please, piped up Robbie. There was a pause, and then quite unexpectedly everybody laughed. Tension broken. You could be magic on your birthday. From the mouths of babes. Diana shook her head. I'm no babe, I'm 8. They were all feeling better. Still, by the time they actually got some food down, nothing but cake and soda pop all day long for the young kids and beer and Doritos for the big kids. Hadn't helped anyone's temperament. Buzz sensed it was time to shuffle under the table for handouts. By second helping, Donna was talking about school. Diana was raving about the latest book she was reading on textural design elements, and Steve was even joking about Tuthill. That guy has to be the biggest jerk ever born. I think he uses the remote just to annoy me. How's that work, Dad? Making the channels change from way over there. I mean, seems kind of magic. Well, it's like radio waves, sort of, Robbie. People send out these electrical signals from far away, and they get picked up by the radio and turned into music. Same with this. The remote box sends an electrical signal, and it jiggles up the electrical signals inside the set, makes them switch over to another channel. It's all electronics. But electricity's supposed to make sparks, I thought. Well, some does. Some just make signals, though. They move through the air, and you can't see 'em. Like Ghost? Sort of, yeah, friendly Ghost. Like Casper. I had a dream about Ghost, said Carol Ann, with her wide blue eyes. Was it scary, Carol? Asked Dana. Uh, they were friendly ghosts, too. What happened in the dream, sweetheart? Diana nudged. She always encouraged her children to tell their dreams. Dreams were the window to the soul, her mother used to tell her, and she believed it still. I was walking in the park, and these people were floating around through the trees, and they wanted to play with me, but they couldn't see where I was. But I didn't tell them. But they liked my new dress. But they were afraid of the ugly man, so I wanted to leave, but then I was falling. You know what Fruid says about falling dreams, Mom? Commented Donna. Uh, no, what did he say? Donna just raised her eyebrow up and down. That's a very interesting dream, honey, said Steve. Were the people wearing sheets like ghosts too? They all kinds of funny clothes. You mean like a clown? Robbie was suddenly jolted by this remark, remembering his incident with the clown and the bricks out back. Unconsciously, he rubbed his finger. Not like a clown, Karen shook her head. Like the pictures in Grandma's big book. Steve furrowed his brow at Diana. Your mother's scrapbook? Uh-huh, Carol nodded. The crap book. Donna smirked. Robbie clapped his hand over his mouth. All right, you two, Diana muttered. Then to Carol Ann. That scrapbook, baby. Dana fluttered her eyelids. She's just being scatological, Mother. And you can't stop being so precocious. It's very tedious. And you can clear the table, too. Diana piled 2 plates in front of her elder daughter. Yes, Mother. Donna spoke to her in the most gracious voice, balanced 4 plates on her head, turned, said, Perfect posture, stately elegance and grace, and walked into the kitchen without dropping a single leftover pea. Robbie jumped up and walked behind her a few steps, whittling his rear. Okay, that's enough. Help your sister, Robbie, Steve said. Robbie returned to the table and gathered silverware. Diane tipped her head toward Caroline. Guess she was impressed with those old photos. Some of them are my grandparents, and a few great-grandparents even, I think. Steve smiled at Caroline. Well, now that was very interesting, sweetheart, and it goes to show that ghosts aren't always scary. Caroline nodded, but she was more interested now in trying to pick up a pea off the table with her tongue. Diane scrunched up her face at Steve. What had Frood say about falling dreams? There was suddenly a major crash in the kitchen, the sound of dishes breaking on the countertop. That comes out of your allowance, young lady, Diane called. Mom, that's not fair. Don't you remember? Steve boomed. Life's not fair. Then he leaned over and gave Diana a playful kiss. How soon they forget, he murmured. Diana showed up late at the PTA meeting, sat in the back row so she could leave early, and then spent the entire question and answer period arguing with the speaker about the reinstitution of the corporal punishment in the school system. When it was all over, they adjourned to the back of the auditorium for coffee and donuts. Diana ran into Doris Melnick. Doris's son, Eddie, was in Roby's class at school. Moreover, coincidentally, Doris and Diana had attended the same high school in Encino, though in different graduating classes, many years before. They'd never really been friends exactly, and they didn't keep in touch now, really, but those connections were enough so that when they bumped into each other at functions like this, they felt gratefully friendly, and even oddly enough, intimate in a way people are when they don't know each other very well. Diane! Doris, hi! Thank God, a friendly face. Can you believe that idiot on the podium? Well, they lay a hand on my kid, I'm going to get my 32 that Larry bought me and waste them, that's what. I mean, those are supposed to be educated people, educators. Don't they know children respond better to positive reinforcement than negative? I mean, my God, you show a kid love, and they'll behave 10 times more if you whack them, Diane said. What do these turkeys know about raising kids? Not a damn thing, obviously. But how you doing? Can't complain. Oh, we could, but what good would that do? Am I right? You bet I am. But anyway, I'm going back to school. Did I tell you that? No, that's terrific. You know, I've been thinking of doing that. Maybe not necessarily going for my degree, but like an extension course. Now that Carol Ann's in school. Your youngest is in kindergarten already? Well, I'll be. She was such a cutie pie. How is she? Well, Diane let the biggest cloud thicken her voice. She started sleepwalking a few weeks ago. No lie, exclaimed Doris, wolfing down a chocolate donut. Poor baby, what are you doing for her? Well, I took her to the school psychologist. They, gave her a couple tests and she said she was fine. Said she'd outgrow it. Diana slipped her coffee uncertainly. Honey, I don't want to worry you, and I'm sure your little girl is just fine, but these school psychologists are like school nurses. About all they can do is take temperature wrong. The speaker here tonight, he was a school psychologist. If I was you, I'd get a second opinion. Why? What do you think it could be? Hell, I don't know. I'm no specialist. Look, probably it's nothing. She'll outgrow it. All I know is you need a specialist for everything these days. For your left eye, for your big toe. Caroline's got sonobalism. She needs a sonobalism specialist. Am I right? Where in the world would I find one of those? Doris beamed. It just happens my cousin Bernice's sister-in-law has a little boy who had, guess what, sonobalism. And they took him to the incredible specialist. They couldn't stop talking about this guy. They said the kid was cured. This was probably, less than a year ago, so I'll get the number tomorrow and give it to you then. Would you? Would I? You gotta get a specialist, Diane, am I right? You bet I am. Doris beamed. It just happens my cousin Bernice's sister-in-law has a little boy who had, guess what, sonobalism. And they took him to the incredible specialist. They couldn't stop talking about this guy. They said the kid was cured. This was probably, less than a year ago, so I'll get the number tomorrow and give it to you then. Would you? Would I? You gotta get a specialist, Diane, am I right? You bet I am. Thunder rumbled over the distance, came closer, rattled the windows. Robbie and Carol Ann looked up from their respective vantage points in the bedroom. He on his bed, gluing new model rocket ship together, birthday booty, she on the floor, playing with a train, and looked down again. Carol Ann just thought it was the sky coughing, but Robbie didn't like the thunder at all. He feared that the tree was angry. And then, just as he thought that thought, a stark flash of lightning illuminated the yard, and he could see the old oak clearly outside his window. its silhouette bent ominously in the wind, its branches scraping the window pane like claws scrabbling on porcelain. Once more, thunder shook the house. "I think it's watching us," whispered Carol Ann. She wasn't afraid, only commenting. "It's not," Rob crabbed at his sister. "She said the dumbest things sometimes." He didn't look out the window. Diane walked in. "Okay, you two, time for bed. Both brush your teeth." They nodded. "Now get under the covers and get some sleep." "How can anybody sleep with all that noise?" Robbie insisted. "I think we should." Diana turned out the lights. "Closet light. Turn on the closet," Robbie cried urgently. "Okay, okay," Diane answered. "I'm getting it now." She turned on the bulb in the closet they used for a nightlight. "Now, good night." Diana opened the closet door wide and made a grand show of exploring its depths. "Okay, I'm looking behind the clothes. Nothing there. Now inside the shoeboxes. Nope. Now behind the broken footstool. Nobody here. Look, it's okay." She emerged smiling. "Looks clear. Nothing hiding." Robbie appeared satisfied. Diane went to each bed, gave them each a goodnight kiss, and went back to her own bedroom. That was when Robbie noticed the clown doll sitting in the rocking chair. He actually jumped. It startled him so. Not that the clown had suddenly appeared, exactly. It was only that Robbie had become suddenly aware of it being there, and suddenly aware that it had been outside, lying under a pile of cinder blocks earlier in that day. It seemed to be laughing now, a silent, frozen laugh. Robbie got up from the bed without looking at the laughing doll, picked a plaid shirt up off the floor and threw it over the clown's head. Then he got back in bed. Lightning struck far away, electric blue, and a few seconds later the thunder throatily thundered. Or was it muffled laughter? Steve sat in his bed in his shorts, rolling a joint, watching an old Bogart movie on the tube. Diana jumped in and sat beside him. "Were you that scared when you were his age?" she asked. "What, scared?" "Roby, the poor kid's scared of the closet." "It's the age. 7 is the closets, I remember." "Oh, yeah? What's 37? Interest rates? I'm scared of interest rates." "What worries you?" Lightning sizzled miles away. The television set crackled with static. Steve licked the paper, put one end in his mouth, lit the other, and inhaled. "Caroline's sleepwalking. That's really worrying me. She'll outgrow it." He passed her the joint. Thunder. "But did you see her last night? Glued to the set downstairs and having a conversation?" "All kids talk to themselves." "She was talking to the TV, and she was sleeping." Diana took a long drag, then brushed a lock of hair out of Steve's eyes. "And then that business this afternoon? It was frightening, Stephen." "What did the psychologist say?" he asked. "Said she'd outgrow it," Diane answered. Steve smiled. "Want to get a second opinion?" Diana shrugged. "Maybe. Doris Melnick said we should. Or maybe we shouldn't start building the pool now, is all. Maybe we should wait until she does outgrow it. I mean, Steve, she could walk right out there in the middle of the night and fall into it, and we'd never know until morning." "Relax, honey. Take it easy. We just have to remember to keep the doors locked, that's all. She can't get out." He leaned over and nibbled Diana's ear. Her face softened. "Don't you want a pool?" he crooned. "Pool schmool, big deal." She pushed him back, laughing. "First pool on the block, first family on the block." "First kiss of the night," he rumbled in the same register as the approaching thunder. They kissed. On the little screen at the foot of the bed, Humphrey Bogart kissed Lauren Bacall. On the dressing table against the wall, 2 ceramic figures curtsied and bowed. "Mommy, I'm scared." It was Robbie standing at the bedroom door. Diana tried to hide the joint. Steve smiled at her and sighed. "Ah, the family life." Then to Robbie. "Okay, come on, partner. Let's chase it away." He walked over to his son, picked the boy up, and lifted him to his shoulders. "Watch your head." They marched down the hall. Steve sat on the bed beside Roby. The tree scratched the window. Carol Ann huddled under her covers across the room. "It's trying to get in, Daddy," she whispered. "Now, that tree does not want to get into the house," Steve instructed them. "Matter of factly, that tree is very old, and its name is Ebenezer, and it just so happens that it's guarding your room, so nothing bad can get in, even if there was something bad out there, which there is not." Outside, the wind rose, pulling a trash can lid off somewhere and crashing it down the street. Lightning struck again, revealing the tree once more. Its shape seemed to almost have changed, its arm groping towards the house, its main fork a gaping maw. The children jumped. Thunder boomed. They jumped again. "Now then," Steve went on, in a calm, fatherly voice, "all you have to do is count the seconds between when lightning hits and when the thunder comes. If you can count to 7, the storm's a mile away. And if you can count higher, the storm is getting even farther away. so there's nothing to worry about, okay? I can count to 11, Daddy, Carol Ann volunteered. That's terrific, Sweet Pea. Let's hear. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, wait until the lightning hits, Carol Ann. The lightning hit. 1, 2, 3. Steve rose quietly and walked out of the room. 7, 8, 9. From far away, the heavens rumbled. The children were quiet. Steve went back to his room. On the way there, he stopped by Dana's closet door and put his ear next to it. Music. He opened it a crack and peeked in. Good night, Dana. Good night, Dad. Off the phone, Dana. Okay, Dad. He closed the door again and went back to his own room, smiling the smile of a satisfied patron. Robbie stared out into the night. Shadows moved, tried to push the house over. The house creaked under the strain. Finally, the rain came. It spattered the window at first, then drove down in flood, churning the air, pelting the grass, distorting everything even more. Robbie was certain of it now. They were under attack. The night flashed white again, like a missile explosion in a deep space, silent, violent. The tree withered as if in pain. Roby counted to himself, waiting for the shock wave. 5, 6, 7. The thunder started low, like a growling cur, came closer in waves along the ground, finally reached the house, shook the house, pounded the house. Robbie grabbed his terry cloth bear, and they held each other tightly. Carol Ann had the covers over her eyes, but kept peeking out, uncertain what to think, taking her cues from her older brother. Again the lightning. The tree bent forward, clenching its broken fist, battered the side of the house. The hollow that formed its mouth was wide open, laughing, screaming. 2, 3. The thunder came more quickly this time, heavier, more insistent. He seemed to grab the house and shake. It wouldn't let go. The tree claws began tapping at the window. The wind neighed like a ghoul. Rain began to leak under the window. Robbie tried to close his eyes, but he couldn't look away. Could not see. Couldn't. A terrible bolt slammed into the tree. The flash was blinding. The shock was instantaneous. An overwhelming concussion of sound and light. The tree raised up its arms. The children screamed, jumped out of bed, and ran down the hall crying. Steve and Diane sat up with a start and smiled compassionately as the young ones burst into the room. Okay, Steve said, holding out his arms. Everybody in for a camp in. What do you want to watch? Superman or Dallas? Everybody jumped in bed. Please join us again at 6:30 for Traffic Watch. And until then, have a pleasant good morning. The flag was replaced by a screenful of white snow as KTCV went off the air. Outside, the rain continued steadily, without direction or angle. 4 bodies slept soundly in a big California king. Steve, Roby, Carol Ann, Diane. They looked chalky in the glow of the picture tube, looked like ghosts. In the rest of the house, all was still. Suddenly, Carol Ann opened her eyes. She sat up, crawled to the end of the bed, climbed down to the floor, walked up to the television. Shadow images moved in the snow, shaped in the static. Hello, she rasped. Muffled whispers crept out of the screen. A voice. No, many voices moving as the shapes moved. Semi-forms with semi-voices, calling, moving, shifting. I can hear you, Carol Ann answered in wonder. She wasn't afraid, only curious, or just a little amazed. Are you there? The whispers grew. Tiny flashes of light sparkled across the screen now, like microscopic photon explosions, crystals of light. Carol Ann reached out her hand. A hand reached back. A hand of smoke, formless, without substance, excluded from the television screen toward the little girl. Without form, yet somehow hand-like, with fingers that curled upward, then down, momentarily encompassing her head, palpating her, testing, tasting the softness of her hair, her delicate neck. Then it rose. This handless rose above the girl and stretched farther into the room, stretched its pulsating tendrils along an ectoplasmic arm that grew longer every second, remaining attached to the screen, stretched until the hand hovered above the bed, above the peaceful sleepers. Slowly, deliberately, it lowered itself to the bed, to each figure in turn. First, it settled over the boy, pushed a cold finger in the slight depression of his chest, stroked his cheek, muffled his whimpers. Then Diana. It crawled along her skin, rolled her over, pressed her down, while another finger wrapped around Steve's leg and squeezed, grew. Presently it rose again, hung above them in the air once more. Carol Ann watched in fascination. Its fingers never ceased moving, probing. Finally, it reached the wall above the bed and stopped, its greenish, tentacular arms extending the length of the room. It grew brighter, it was engorged with light, when all at once it shot out of the set and into the wall, with a deafening bam! Everyone jumped awake. Robbie immediately lay crying. The room suddenly began shaking, the window cracked, pictures dropped from the walls, light bulbs exploded, the ceramic figurines flew across the room, shattered against the dresser, and then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The room fell in an unnatural hush. Outside, the storm passed away utterly. For a long moment, no one, nothing, moved. And then Carol Ann whispered, "They're here."